folks, Lee with Reel Rollers, and today we're going to share with you how to replace the chain tensioners on your Revolution 26. They look like this. So, before we get started, let's talk about what tools you're going to need. So for this, you're going to need your T-tool, a Phillips head screwdriver, a 10mm socket, and then also red and tacky chain grease or chain and cable lubricant for your chains. You can pick either one, but either one of those lubrications while we're doing the chain tensioner replacement is really important. Now, for many of you, you may have never been under your side cover of your Revolution. So today, we're going to go through how to remove the side cover, also replace these tensioners. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my T-tool, and I'm going to loosen up the main center bolt. Now that I've gotten that loose, there are two Phillips head screws that hold the side cover on and its orientation. So I'm just going to use my Phillips head screwdriver here. There we go. One, got one right here, two, and then with my hand, I can pull out the bolt that holds the side cover on. When I pull the side cover off, I try to pull it straight out. Sometimes you can see the seal will get a little wonky on you, but that's no problem. We'll fix that when we put it right back on. So we talked about chain tensioners. So for everyone, if this is your first time under the hood, the Revolution 20 and 26 have two chain tensioners. The purpose of these tensioners is just what they're made. They're meant to keep the tension on these chains so that they don't jump. Now you'll notice these are properly aligned. You'll see that there's a fat part of what we call the water ski. It's going to run along the chain. Anywhere with a 1mm gap to a 2mm gap like that is perfectly fine. What we want to avoid is the chain only running on the tip up here. Same with this chain right here. I'm going to pull the other chain out of the way. You can see there's a little bit of a gap at the top. We don't want that pressed too hard against the chain. We really want that chain to always be running somewhere along where my thumb is, in that range there. Anywhere from 50% of the curve back to the flat. So that's optimal. To adjust these properly, there's two bolts right here that allow this entire tensioner bracket to go up and down. And there's also two bolts down here which allow this bracket to maneuver up and down. These are easily adjusted. I love to use the T-tool for these because they can reach right around everything without having to remove the chains. So, now that we've covered what these are, let's talk about how to replace them. Super simple and super quick. So to remove both the tensioners, grab my ratchet, my 10mm socket, loosen these up, locking nut. You'll see a flat washer goes between the nylon tensioner and the locking nut, and then I just slide the tensioner away. And I let the spring just hang, just like that, no problem. I'm gonna do the same thing with the top one. Use my ratchet, remove the locking nut and flat washer, and just slide my tensioner off. To reinstall the tensioner, it's always easiest if you get the spring onto this middle section first, and then go ahead and gear it back. So we'll do the top one first. I'm gonna grab my tensioner like this. You can come right up here close. I'm gonna put the spring, if you come up front here, I'm putting the spring over the middle, and then I'm simply putting the shaft right through the middle of the tensioner, just like that. Throw my washer on, and my lock nut. Biggest key right here is that spring is on the middle of the nylon, and the back end of the spring is hooked right where you can see it in that picture. And we'll do a picture so you can see it. Now this spring came off when I pulled the tensioner off, so to get it back on, it's real easy. Spring just goes around the shaft right there, and I have this spring headed at 9 o'clock. All I'm going to do is go behind the chain, like I did right there, and bring it to 3 o'clock. The reason I do that is I need this back section to hook onto the bracket. So with my pointer finger, I'm simply going to lift this spring up, and I'm going to get on the outside, because when it's on the outside now, it makes it super easy to just put that spring over my tensioner in the middle, just like that. Then I work my tensioner right up onto the shaft of the bracket, and I just wiggle it right on, just like so. Throw my washer on, flat washer, then my lock nut. The secret here is to make sure that it's nice and tight once we tighten things up. So, tighten this one up real quick. We're just tightening the tensioner onto the bracket. And it doesn't have to be crazy tight. It's a lock nut. And then we'll do the same thing up top. There it is. Last thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust these brackets so that they're aligned perfectly, and we're done. Now that we have both of our tensioners replaced and the 10mm lock nuts on, again, we're verifying the springs are right down the middle of these. Now we're going to adjust them. So with my T-tool, there's 2 bolts that hold the upper bracket on. The top one's easy to access. The bottom one, it's a little easier when you actually move the chain tensioner up, and the T-tool can sneak right behind it. Lefty-loosey, I'm just loosening this bracket. You can see this bracket can slide up and down, up and down. My goal, so you can see, is I want the tensioner to run with about 1 millimeter of space at the bolt, and that right here. So as I point, I'll get this out of the way, but you can see where my Phillips head is. This is a little too far. Good, but I want it optimal. Optimal is right about there, where there's still a little bit of a gap at the top and the ski's running right here. So now that I push down with my finger this bracket and I slid it down, I'm just going to tighten one of these nuts, or bolts, sorry, so it holds in place. And like I said earlier, lift the tensioner, sneak behind it, boom. Nice and tight, nothing crazy. That tensioner's done. Bottom tensioner, same thing. I can sneak underneath it to get to that bolt, loosen that guy up. And then you get to this other bolt that's holding it on. I'm going to stick my finger in there, pull that tensioner back, let the T-tool slide in there. And now my bracket's loose, and you can see this bracket goes up and down. So to adjust this one correctly, get this best my position, I think right about there looks good. So what I'm going to do is hold it with my one finger and just tighten one of these bolts so it stays in that position right there. And as I mentioned before, use my hand to move that tension out of the way and sneak in with the T-tool. Bam! Tensioners are both in place. They've been fully replaced. They're both running well along parallel with the chain. Again, my goal is to have a little bit of a gap right down here if I can. But I want that ski running right, that chain running right there on that ski, anywhere in that range. I just don't want it on the tip, and I just don't want it just running on the butt. So now that we've done that, last thing we'll do, 2 things, is lubrication. We have 2 options. You can use a chain spray. It's ideal to do this at least twice a season. So we usually spray our chains or lubricate them after our scalp in the spring, because the scalping is really messy. So we do it after we scalp, and then we also do it about mid-season when we do a back lap. So we can do the chain spray. It doesn't last as long, but it's easier to apply and a little less messy, you could say. Or what I like to use is this red and tacky from Home Depot. It's a bearing grease. It's just what you think. It's red and tacky. And we'll take that, squeeze it onto one of our back lap brushes, and on the chains we're going to paint the top and then rotate, and we're also going to paint the top and inside of this chain, because on the 40 chain the tensioner actually runs on the inside. We're just trying to create less resistance. So I'm just going to paint this chain, help keep it lubricated. Once I'm done with lubricating the chains, I'm going to grab my side cover. And just a quick tip on the side cover, because for everyone watching, got my stripe. Now if you come down here real quick, see this plate right down here? Sometimes people don't put the cover over this plate. It needs to go over it. So what I like to do is I like to start low. I come in, my orientation all the way low, and then I just keep working my way up as little as I can to make it fit. So you can see I came in at the bottom, I'm really touching the ground pretty much. And then as I got close to the machine, I had to go up a little bit, and I keep going up just to get past these brackets, and I center. And when I do that, I can hold this with one hand. You'll be able to see down below, that bracket is inside of the cover. And the easiest way is if you center it all up visually, and do your bolts first, you can almost feel, I mean, I didn't even do anything. If I just line it up like it should, you get the bolt started first. I do that, and then I'll put in my orientation Phillips head screws. There's one right there, one right there. Once these are both snug, 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 come back with a trusty T-tool and snug that one up as well. So folks, the important thing here on the tensioner exchange replacement is, one, make sure that you have the tensioners adjusted correctly, and that means have a little minimal gap in between the chain, right at the pivot point. Two, it's great to check under your chain cover at least a couple times in a season, guys. This is where all the action is. So, you know, to check this before you scalp, after you scalp, because that puts a lot of wear on it, and that's usually when people conduct their service. And then usually mid-season. I mean, it doesn't hurt just to pop this off, lubricate the chains, and make sure these tensioners haven't been worn or don't need to be replaced. On average, a tensioner is going to last you 2 to 3 seasons, okay? Outside of that, have a great day. Happy mowing. If you need anything, shoot us an email or contact us via our website, realrollers.com. Thank you.